black bags, a hacksaw and a shovel. The cashier looked at me funny as he had rung up all the items. "All you're missing is the lime," he said with a concerned look on his face. I nervously laughed as I handed him my credit card. Double quotes cash or card? The clerk asked. "Fuck it. I charge on my wife's card. I doubt she will mind." I grabbed all the stuff and made my way back out to the car. I loaded the stuff in the back seat before jumping in the driver's seat. Are you sure you're up for this?" I asked. My wife put her hand on my leg before giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I can't keep letting you do this on your own, Mike. We drove for hours. We were making sure this time we were well out of the state. Usually, I don't get my wife involved in this, but every time I do this it takes a bit of me with it. I think my wife just wants to share the burden." We were well out of state by the time the banging started. Soon she was going to be fully awake and screaming to be let out. If we got pulled over, how do we explain away the screaming girl in our trunk? We drove for a bit up the mountain to a spot I had planned in advance. By the time we pulled up, she was fully awake and screaming to get out. I wanted to break her legs so she couldn't escape. It's what I usually do, but the wife thought it was cruel. I told my wife to be prepared as I got ready to open the trunk. I whipped open the trunk, and out she jumped, knocking my wife over as she ran for her life. I grabbed the rope I had tied to her neck, snapping her off her feet and onto her back. "Kill her quickly," screamed my wife. I grabbed the shovel, and just as she was about to jump back on her feet, I cracked her in the back of the head, killing her instantly. We made sure to go deep into the woods to bury the body. My wife helped me drag the dead weight up a hill before we found a good spot to bury her. The sun was starting to rise by the time the hole was deep enough to bury her. Deep enough so not even the animals could get to her. We decided to stop over in a motel before making the long journey home. Killing always took it out of me, and my wife just wanted to sleep in a bed. "Do you think it was enough this time?" my wife asked. I cradled my wife in my arms as we lay exhausted on a dingy old mattress. "I'm sure this will be the last time," I said, trying my best to reassure my wife, but I was doing this long enough to know that probably wouldn't be the case. We must have drifted off at some stage, because I suddenly found myself being jolted awake by the sound of broken glass. "What is it, dear?" The broken glass cracked under my feet as I walked to check the window. "I'm not sure. Hopefully, it's nothing." I didn't want to alarm her, but I knew from the blood on the window we weren't alone. I could hear the beating of my heart as I followed the trail of blood to the bathroom. Beads of sweat rolled down my back as I slowly turned the door handle. "You're starting to scare me, Mike," said my wife as she sat shaking on the bed. I slowly opened the door. I could hear slow, shallow breathing emanating from the darkness of the bathroom. My hand rattled with fear as I searched around for the light switch. She stood staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was black with the dirt from the hole we had just buried her in. "Why did you put me in that dark place? Don't you love me?" she said as her disjointed neck cracked as she turned to face me. I slowly backed up out of the bathroom. She opened her mouth and let out an unholy scream before lunging towards me. "Get the shovel," I screamed at my wife. I managed to subdue her on the ground as my wife ran into the room with the shovel. "I think you need to do what we talked about," said my wife as she handed me the shovel. I brought the blade of the shovel down hard on her neck, cutting her head from her body. I know, cutting up the body seems extreme, but it was my wife's idea after all. It was just something I could never stomach. But we have exhausted all ideas at this moment. When our daughter first died in a car accident, it broke us. She was our only daughter. Our world? Don't ask me how. But one night, I came downstairs for a glass of water, and there she was just sitting there. We thought it was a miracle, but eventually, we had to face the truth. It wasn't our daughter that came back. The first few times I killed her, it killed me a little bit every time. It's been 20 years now since she first died. Hopefully cutting her body into pieces will do the trick. I had a weird experience at the movies yesterday, and wanted to share it on the internet as a bit of a PSA. Essentially, you really should read the warnings that come on before the movie. I go to my local theater pretty often. It's close to my house and I like the popcorn. Naturally, when I was bored with nothing to do yesterday, I walked over there. There was only one movie showing that I hadn't already seen. I hadn't heard of it before, but I wasn't in the mood to rewatch a movie. I bought a ticket, got my popcorn, and sat down in the theater. I really wish I remembered what the movie was called, but I'm horrible with names. I kind of recall what it was about. Some cheesy rom-com about young adults falling in love in college biology class. I was wondering if the theater was doing some kind of nostalgia event because the thing felt like it came out 25 years ago. If they were, it wasn't well attended. Only a handful of people were in the theater with me. The above mentioned warning came on after the standard "be quiet and don't record the movie" clip. It was just a black screen with white text that went something like this. Notice: leaving the theater while the film is playing is against theater policy. Violators will be escorted out of the building. A voice read the text out as well. And I guess the addition of the warning had been rushed, because she tripped over her words when she read leaving. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured some teens had been goofing off in the theater hallway or something. Around an hour into the film, I really had to pee. I remembered the warning, but thought if I wasn't being disruptive I wouldn't get in trouble. I mean, they wouldn't been going to the bathroom, would they? So I left, taking note of which theater I was in, theater 3. I went to the bathroom, and walked back. The theater wasn't there, like I said. I go to the movies a lot, so I know the building layout well. Where theater 3 was supposed to be was instead theater C. I had never seen a theater C in this building before, only theaters 1 to 4. I wondered if maybe they'd changed it without my noticing, and tried the door to theater C, but it was locked. I walked around for a bit looking for theater 3 and quickly noticed more things that were out of place. For starters, there was no trash, nothing in the trash cans, no popcorn spilled on the floor. The place was pristine. It was cold too, real cold. Outside it was like 90°F, and I knew the theater AC hadn't been this intense when I came in. The most damning thing, though, was the lack of an exit. No ticket or popcorn stand either. Just a couple hallways with doors to various impossible theaters. I was starting to panic, and tried all the doors. None of them opened. Double quotes, how are they going to escort me out if there's no exit? I thought hysterically, and chuckled a little. It came out louder than I expected and echoed through the hall. Immediately, I heard footsteps behind me. I tried to turn around, but before I could, a frigid hand wrapped its fingers around my shoulder and pulled me back. I jerked away and spun to see what was there. I was a man. I think, definitely a person. I didn't see any specific features. His outstretched hand distracted me. His fingers were blackened and swollen, horribly frostbitten. He lurched forward, grasping for my shoulder again, and I jumped back, turned, and ran like my life depended on it. Half stumbling through the hall, I could hear footsteps behind me. The temperature kept dropping. Freezing air bit my lungs when I gasped for air. I wasn't sure how long I could keep running for. Right as I was about to collapse, an arm burst from the wall beside me. It beckoned toward me, and without thinking I took it. It yanked me into the wall. We crashed through like it was paper, and behind was a door marked exit. I pushed it open, and stepped aside so my rescuer could follow. After a couple seconds passed, without anyone exiting, I glanced through the door to see what was happening. There was nobody there. The credits were rolling in front of the empty seats of Theater 3. I was standing outside, having gone through an emergency exit. My legs ached, but I didn't know what to, so I just walked back home. I don't know what exactly happened. I don't know if it was the theater or something else that did it. I don't know if it was legal. I was warned. I guess ... In any case, I'm not going back to the theater. I'd advise all of you to read the warnings when, or if, you go to the movies. I remember that freezer from my childhood, not the food or the way it buzzed, but the door itself. It was locked by a heavy-duty chain that wrapped around it like a starving boa constrictor. Do not open the freezer, darling, she would say, her eyes and words strained by something my childhood brain didn't understand. Years later, after moving away to upstate New York for my postdoc and following her passing, I found myself standing in that same kitchen again, yearning to know the secrets she had kept from me all these years. By this point, the chain was gone, the sign was gone, and all that remained was a faint outline where the words used to be. As a child, I never questioned it much. The locked freezer was just one of many strange rules in my house. My mother was a hypochondriac when it came to us kids. I was homeschooled until I was 9, rarely had visitors, and struggled to make friends because my mother feared other kids might contaminate me with some horrible disease. I suspect this was because my older brother, Tyler, passed away before I was born. When I asked about him, my mother's lips would tighten into a thin line. Over the years, I pieced together conversations between my mother and family. The word baby always caught my attention, followed by words like gone and poor thing. They painted a blurry picture of something terrible, an accident or unfortunate event. Whatever happened changed my mother forever. The once happy-go-lucky woman was forged into cast iron, someone withdrawn and haunted. The house felt cold since she passed, an echo of emptiness I had felt, but never understood. I spent days cleaning and sorting through her life, each box and paper revealing a little more about the woman I thought I knew. I found an old journal in her knitstand. The leather was worn, and the pages were yellowed with age. The entries were disjointed and sporadic, often containing only fragments of troubled thoughts. She wrote about the frigid darkness, a suffocating presence that shadowed her every move. One line struck me to my core. I am afraid of what I've done, of what I might do. I cannot let them find out. The freezer is my only refuge. I didn't know what she meant. I feared I knew, but my mind refused to believe. My hand shot for the freezer door, my heart pounding in the silence. I hesitated, still hearing my mother's voice warning me one last time. A part of me hoped it would still be locked, but as I pulled, the door swung open with ease. I stared into the dark abyss as frigid air filled my nose, causing me to clamp my eyes shut. The faint smell of mildew lingered as I opened my eyes. Inside was a small box, like a cake box. For a moment, a small ray of hope shone through the frigid darkness. Maybe this is the top of my parents' wedding cake. My father left when I was 2. So, Mom was just nostalgic and didn't want anything to happen to it. I grabbed the box, slowly pulling it out, and set it on the dining room table. As I lifted the lid, a small bundle of plastic and cloth was neatly wrapped inside. The plastic was old, crinkling under my trembling touch as I unwrapped it. A sense of foreboding washed over me, one last whispered warning before it was too late. The final piece of cloth fell away, and I was face to face with an infant. Horrified, I lurched backward, dropping the box in a fit of anxiety, rage and disgust. In my weeping sorrow, I finally understood the isolation, the loneliness, the emptiness, the whole damn thing. I buried Tyler Jacob Anderson in the backyard of my childhood home. The truth was out, a secret long buried now laid bare, and with it came a strange, aching relief. To this day, I carry my mother's grief with me, a testament to the frigid darkness we all carry and the light we strive to find.